in sepia, actually, not black and white. And then they filmed the scenes in Oz in Technicolor. But when they made that transition from the inside the house, and she opens the door to go to Oz, how did they do that? Well, it took a lot of work. So first, they took the set and they painted the whole set in sepia colors. And then they had Dorothy's body double, dressed her in sepia clothes and sepia makeup. So you couldn't tell that it wasn't filmed in sepia, but it was filmed with the color camera. And so they show her walking up her back, and she walks up to the door, whole sepia set, and she opens the door, and you see this beautiful color outside in the garden from Oz, right? And so but it's always there, right? And so all of our feelings that we have are like that part within us that's always there, ready to be in Technicolor. You know, Carol mentioned how when we add our feelings and emotions to our spiritual mind treatment or prayer, that's what gives it the power. You know, spiritual mind treatment is a scientific process of using prayer. You know, when we speak our word and we believe, it will demonstrate. But when we add the feelings to it, the power, the belief, that's what gives it the real power that we know that it is happening, right? So our emotions actually also make that spice of life that makes us feel alive, you know? And I don't mean that we live our lives lost in the drama of all of those feelings that keep repeating over and over with the pain and sorrow, the stories of betrayal and suffering and all of those things that some people just seem to go on and on and on forever in their lives. But in fact, by choosing how we respond to our emotions, we can use our emotions as guideposts to co-create the life of joy, peace, and love that we sincerely desire, right? And that we deserve because we are a creation of God. Now, there's many types of emotions. And this month, though, we're going to focus on 4 key emotions: fear, happiness, anger, and sadness. And so when we learn to lean into our emotions with curiosity and wonder rather than avoidance, or when we will discover how critical our emotions are for our understanding, our growth, and our well-being, right? Now, from the reading this morning from Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav, it's a really amazing, powerful book. Zukav talks about people who focus on wielding external power in the 5 sensory world, which is what he calls the physical world. And for these people, feelings are unnecessary appendages, just like your tonsils. You can take it out, and it has no function other than to create pain and dysfunction. I think the doctors have figured out that there are a few things that it does for us, but that was the way it used to be thought of. And so even worse, our feelings can make us vulnerable and reduce our power when we let them overtake us, right? When we let ourselves get overwhelmed. You know, there are these parts of society that admire those business people that can heartlessly fire people. You're fired, right? Or the military leaders who send the soldiers into war, you know, and they're going to capture some territory or dominate others in order to build their own power and wealth. You know? Society teaches us to control and stomp down our emotions in many ways and not listen to all of that. You know, many of us are taught as children to shut down and contain those emotions, right? You know, I don't think I ever saw my parents argue in front of the kids once, right? They'd always go in the bedroom, and it was pretty quiet, right? It was probably worse for the boys, though, who were told big boys don't cry, right? And a real man has to be machismo, right? He must be virile, powerful, and dominate others, especially women, right? You know, when I was working as an engineer, many of the engineering managers were like tanks. You know, they could just keep rolling along, and it didn't matter how things were going with the project or not. They could work 60, 65-hour weeks, week after week after week, and deal with all the difficult clients. And I tried to do that way, but I just couldn't do it. You know, I had to suppress too much of myself. I had to shortchange my family much more often than I wanted to. And I discovered through trial and error that I was much better off to listen to my intuition. Because when my intuition told me there was something crazy going on, there was. And so if I listened, great. And if I didn't listen and just went on like that tank, that's when things got difficult with the client or the project. Something happened. Now, we're also taught that some emotions are good and some are bad. There's a blog on the internet called Good Therapy, and they said emotions by themselves are neither good nor bad. They are simply reactions. However, the way we act, the next slide, or on our emotions can strongly affect our well-being. You know, we might choose to only experience happiness, or we would berate ourselves when we would feel anything else, or we would feel angry or sad, or deny ourselves time to grieve the loss of a loved one. Oh, we have to stand up and be strong. No, you need to grieve. Whether you do it now or later, you need to grieve. We need to decide, sometimes we'll decide to please others rather than following our soul's inner direction when it conflicts with what would please someone else, right? We need to learn to pay attention to those feelings inside because we're part of God as well, right? Now, one way to respond to all these conflicting emotions is just to bury them deep in our psyche, right? And that's, we never allow them to see the light of day, much less acknowledgement or reflection, right? When we do so, though, we bury a part of ourselves as a shadow self that never gets to breathe in the fresh air of life. You know, that shadow self is still there. It takes a lot of energy to keep it locked up. It can pop out at very inconvenient times to sabotage our heart's desires, or we might find ourselves in a rage at somebody because of something that we've been, keeping boxed up for years. Right? Another way to respond to these undesired emotions is to use shallow spiritual practices to avoid and repress the emotions and underlying issues. This approach creates what we call a spiritual bypass. Spiritual bypass is a term coined by John Wellwood. He was a psychotherapist in the field of transpersonal psychology. In his classic book, Towards a Psychology of Awakening, he defined spiritual bypass as using spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep personal, emotional, unfinished business, to shore up a shaky sense of self, or to belittle basic needs, feelings, and developmental tasks. And so a spiritual bypass actually corrupts the use of spiritual practices to repress and avoid dealing with traits such as low self-esteem, self-isolation, and other emotional issues. So for instance, if we would just, something big is going on that's difficult in our lives, and we just sit and meditate and get to peace and calm, but we never resolve the issue, we never face it, we're just using it like a Band-Aid. And we call that a spiritual bypass. It prevents us, because we've tamped down the feelings and boxed them up very nicely, it prevents us from processing those emotions and learning from the messages and the lessons that they bring. We might not be spiraling downwards and we're able to function, but we don't have that opportunity to heal the old wounds or to release resentment, blame, and those unenforceable expectations that we sometimes come up with, right? But these unexamined beliefs and experiences can hinder us from ever living that life we want to live, including creating happy and fulfilling relationships. So Gary Zukav suggests that the time has come for humans to go beyond limiting our understanding of the world. We need to evolve to go beyond the five senses and the logic and personality of our minds and intellect. We are, in fact, multisensory beings. So our emotions, this is where we get the wisdom from the heart as well as the head of these emotions can engage our feelings and use our intuition to align our consciousness and our intentions with our soul, right? Our soul is that part of ourselves that's immortal, an expression of that one life that is divine. And when we recognize the energy of the soul, we discover authentic power, not external power, but authentic power that is expressing the divine qualities of creativity, love, compassion, and wisdom. Our emotions are amazing clues to identify our hidden beliefs that are blocking and undermining our divine intentions. You know, when you pray for something and you pray and you pray and it never comes true, never comes into being, well, there's some kind of underlying belief that we have that says, I want to be rich, but I don't deserve it. I want to have a great relationship, but I don't deserve it. No one could really love me. Well, yes, they can, but you have to love yourself first, right? And so when our emotions get triggered, whether they're painful, blissful, or just a tender vulnerability, those emotions are signposts that can guide us to acknowledge and reflect those underlying beliefs and expectations that we uncover that have been holding us back. Again, from Seed of the Soul, Gary Zukav says, emotions reflect intentions. Therefore, awareness of emotions leads to awareness of intentions. Every discrepancy between a conscious intention and the emotions that accompany it points directly to a splintered aspect of the self that requires healing. So as an example, your intention to marry causes you pain instead of joy. Well, follow that pain that will lead you to see your unconscious intention about getting married. What is it that you're afraid of, or what is it about this relationship, right? Another example, if your intention is to advance in your work, but it causes you sorrow and instead of satisfaction, follow that sorrow to lead you to your unconscious intentions about your work. Is it the right career? Is it, do you need to move? What is it? But that sorrow is your clue, right? The signpost. Gay and Kathleen Hendricks wrote a great book called Conscious Loving, The Journey to Co-Commitment, and my husband Michael have gone through that book in great detail. And they have a lot of exercises of how you can improve your relationship with your partner and use these emotions, feelings to help us improve that. And so let's say you're in conversation and you or they get triggered by something that you say or something that happens, and emotions can get activated pretty loud, and it can be cantankerous, and it could be something little that sets you off, but it's just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and so something that's been suppressed is coming out. So they suggest when you have a situation or an issue like this, and Michael and I, we've tried this, we know it works. So you would have to have, first, both partners have to agree that they are willing and intend to resolve the issue. All right? Without that intention, you got nothing. But rather than reacting defensively when something comes up, calm down, and when you're ready to calmly listen to each other and work together in that we space, ask each other a series of questions. So each partner asks. And so the questions are, first, how do I feel? Do I feel angry? Do I feel sad? What am I feeling? It's getting in touch with our inner self. Next, what do I want? How is the past coloring my present? That really gets us down into those hidden beliefs. What am I getting out of staying stuck? There's these side benefits a lot of times we don't think about. What do I need to say that I'm not saying? What agreements have I broken? And how can I be of service? Right? So it's creating that we space, my space, your space, and that we space together, where you become that one as a partnership. And it's really amazing what comes to the surface to be healed when both people are willing, and you create a safe space to go within and listen, right? It creates an opportunity for deep healing of both individuals and the relationship, right? The feelings and emotions are the guideposts. Now, when we do discover these unconscious intentions, we have a choice. We can continue to live as victims by ignoring our emotions and letting our life continue the way it has, and let that pain and sorrow continue. Or we could do a spiritual bypass, and we're really upset, and we can just sit down and calm down and meditate and get ourselves calm and still let things continue on the way that they've always been, right? Real problem is still there. But what I'd like to suggest is that we can welcome our emotions with open arms and our open hearts, right? Eric Butterworth, in his book Spiritual Economics, says, "Nothing else can satisfy or fulfill unless you enjoy the freedom that comes from control of your inner world of mind and emotions." You know, welcoming painful emotions means looking at them directly in the face and seeing what they have to say. You know, this applies to all of our emotions, whether it's pain or just mild tenderness or maybe even bliss. You know, sometimes when we go through bliss and we're so excited and exhilarated, but we're not grounded, right? And we're disconnected from ourselves. And so when the bliss wears off, we come back to the old pain. So we've been using that bliss as an escape rather than part of our evolution, right? So welcoming our painful emotions takes humility, takes courage and strength, because this is a tough exercise. I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road, and we do the real work on our spiritual growth as individuals. And when we listen to the soul, to that divine guidance of spirit within us, we may be called upon to make some fundamental shifts in our beliefs in our life, right? But that's where change comes. And sometimes having this love relationship means that we're willing to go out of our comfort zone to do something that we wouldn't do otherwise. I know we were having a year when our finances were way down and clients weren't paying their bills and so forth. And I remember doing some things for my 7-year-old stepdaughter that I would have never done. But I faced a lot of my own feelings about lack because of what I wanted to do for her. So it made me step out of my comfort zone, and that was really important to my life. So we can stop and reflect on our life and look within ourselves for the deepest causes of our pain and sorrow, you know. We can look and see those hidden beliefs that have caused the issues, perhaps. You know, like, what are those relationships that fall apart one after the other? Or maybe it's this new person maybe is the same old person with a new face. You know, we keep repeating the same pattern. Or it could be an ongoing experience of lack and never having enough, you know, never quite enough. You know, you get more money and it's still never enough. I mean, what's the pattern? Or why are we always angry at everyone and every situation in our life? You know, why are we impatient? What's going on within us? You know, there were, as a teenager and as a young adult, you know, in my 20s, there were several emotional situations in my life that were just overwhelming, right? And so I didn't know how to handle them. And so I did a lot of journaling. And there was a lot of sad and painful thoughts that spewed out onto that page. But getting it out did help, right? But I didn't know what to do about it, right? So, but I had this, as I was doing it, part of what happened is I had this inner image of taking each of these problems and putting them in a box and getting these beautiful velvet ribbons. They were navy blue, and tying them up on a beautiful bow and putting them on the shelf in my closet. And after a while, there was a lot of boxes with ribbon in my closet, right? But at least I could function every day. When I started going through the Science of Mind classes, though, and particularly when I went through practitioner training, I took those boxes down out of the closet one by one, and I unwrapped the ribbon, opened up the box, and I had some tools now to deal with what was there. I knew how I could change my life, and it did, right? So it's made an amazing difference. And so after a while, the closet was empty, right? And so my dreams became more peaceful and joyous instead of these crazy things that were going on. And my journal entries became shorter, and they were focused on the present. My heart was lighter, and I felt a sense of freedom and balance. Life was good. Life was good, right? I was ready to deal with anything new that came along because I was living in the present, whether it was good or challenging. I was ready. I was prepared. I learned a lot that really helps being a minister, right? Um, but I also knew that I was not alone, like Rod Loomis was singing about this morning. My inner spiritual guide had carefully and lovingly walked me through the process of healing and was always with me, is always with me right now. I didn't need to push or pull. I didn't need to hide. I didn't need to get away from it. I just learned to be still and know that I am God, that God is all there is, right? So we want to, another step then beyond this is to create balance and harmony in our emotions. True spiritual practice, as opposed to a spiritual bypass, is fundamental to identifying and processing our emotions. So first, we center and balance ourselves with spiritual practice. Now, if we just stop there, that would be like the Band-Aid of the spiritual bypass. That we wouldn't change everything. But if we do want to experience that spiritual growth and healing, we can build on those spiritual practices to give us that gentle focus and the curiosity and inner strength to go deeper as we explore who we are and learn how we can heal old hurts. We can learn what it is. Why do I always get triggered? And if we listen, our inner spiritual guide will tell us. Pray for clarity. And it's amazing. Clarity comes. Right? We can learn to apply forgiveness, compassion, and love to heal our hearts and our lives, every aspect of our lives. We no longer need to ignore, run away, or hide from that pain. We can stand there and look it in the face and know that it is not the divine intention for us. It is just a messenger telling us how we need to shift at that inner level. There's plenty of examples of effective spiritual practices. There is meditating, or you could use a mantra. Sometimes when things are just, your mind is just going crazy, a mantra is a really way to get your mind to focus. Journaling, praying for clarity, and working with a practitioner or a prayer partner, particularly if it's something that you've been working on and praying about and you're just stuck. Well, a practitioner is really wonderful at helping you get through and see that belief. Might be much more obvious to them, or they can help you see it for yourself, right? All of these practices provide a vehicle for deep, intuitive healing and listening. Our inner guide knows where these hidden beliefs and fears and expectations are located and can reveal them to our conscious awareness. We know in our heart of hearts all of the answers that we're seeking, but we've just got them buried. And so it's a matter of opening it up and making it safe for our head and our heart to be aligned and have that truth come to the surface, and then we can make use of it. One profitable place to look is where we find inner resistance. Oh, I don't really want to, whatever it is. Oh, I don't want to think about. Well, that's where you want to start and see what's going on. And as we continue supporting our journey with spiritual practices, we can take our time to explore deeper, unpack our beliefs, and learn what beliefs we have stored in our unconscious minds. And with persistence, with an open heart, and perhaps with the assistance of a spiritual guide, we will discover what must be cleaned out and released. Eventually, we can learn to live a balanced life of harmony and well-being that's spiced by that perfect spicy blend of healthy emotions, right? As we identify and clear out the filters and the hidden beliefs that disguise or block that sustaining flow of spirit expressing itself in and through our lives, life will flow with ease and with grace, right? We will be ready to address those feelings of sadness or fear or anger when they first arise, rather than letting them fester and get stronger and stronger and stronger. When it's a little nudge, we'll be ready to respond, right? Rather than being overwhelmed. We'll experience gentle lessons rather than debilitating drama, right? We can learn to experience joy and bliss while we are grounded at the same time, so life can continue flowing at a steady and nurturing pace. And throughout the world and in our local economy and with the drought and all the the national events, there's just been so much going on. It's been a real roller coaster of lots of emotional ups and downs, that are outside of us. And so not only we have our own stuff to deal with, we have the world's stuff to deal with. But we can use our spiritual practices to stay grounded and connected with spirit. So we are ready to process that constant emotional swings of life. And also, as we collectively come together in a consciousness that emotions are here to support us, and we are rising together and changing the consciousness of the world, that race consciousness, the experiences in the world will also shift. I mean, it's been interesting to watch what's going on in Ukraine and how the people have stood up for peace and what they believe in, and how they, the David and Goliath situation that they're in, that they've been so powerful, right? And so the maintaining that emotional health and balance also takes practice, though. And besides the spiritual practice, we want to stay aware of our thoughts, moods, and disposition, and examine what triggers us, as I've said. And we also want to take care of our body temple with regular exercise, rest, healthy diet, positive engagement with others, mental stimulation, and meaningful activities. We choose what we do with our time rather than frittering it away. And sometimes just having a cup of coffee and watching the clouds go by is the most important thing to do at the moment, right? Now, when life starts to get too spicy or too dull on the other end, we must be willing to live in the question, what opportunities for emotional learning and healing are in this present moment? And with regular spiritual practice, we can recognize areas of our life that need extra attention, personal growth, and healing. Your emotions are a guide to a happy and healthy life, filled with a perfect mix of spices of life: awareness, courage, compassion, strength, and faith. Join me on the journey. Let's take this to prayer. And so, as I turn within, I know that there is one life that is God. And it is the life within me and within all the world. One life, one being, one love, one infinite invisible that is expressing itself in and through all its creation. And this is the truth of my being. I am one with God. That steady breath as I breathe in and breathe out is the universal love breathing me as me. I am nurtured and sustained by spirit. It is my very life. And so I know that I am safe. I know that it is safe to open my heart, to allow myself to be something greater, to be all that I am divinely intended to be, and to let go of what I have been holding on to that has really been holding me back rather than supporting me. I allow my whole self to grow and come into alignment with that higher self. And so we breathe as one. I am a point of consciousness in the world, centered in the one. And so I invite you to let an emotion that you have been experiencing come into your conscious awareness. It may be happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise, joy, trust, love. Perhaps it's embarrassment or guilt or satisfaction. There are many more, but let it come to the surface and focus on that emotion and just watch it go by without attachment. Let your thoughts flow. as you get distracted, gently redirect your focus back to that emotion. Be the observer, watching it flow by. Allow your whole self to be fully present. And as you observe those thoughts and the emotion, know that you will remember any messages that are important to remember. Allow Spirit to bless you. As you speak your word of blessing, accept it with open arms and know that you are loved, a beloved son or daughter of God. And as you are full of love overflowing, allow it to flow and bless your family, every member, every situation. And know that it is good. Bless our spiritual community with that infinite love, that we are here as Spirit is in the house. Spirit is in each one of us, in our hearts, in our dreams, in our vision together, in all that we think, say, and do together. We bless our North Tahoe-Truckee community and all of the activities. We bless our country and its leaders, that they are guided to remember that they are one, that they are guided to listen to that one within them, to make decisions with an accordance with the highest and best for all involved, rather than their small self. But to step up to that higher level of being, so that as a country we evolve and express these divine qualities of love and peace and joy and wisdom, compassion for all life, for the environment, for other countries. And bless the world wherever there is conflict, anywhere. Know that there is peace, that perfect harmony and love and peace of the divine are the truth. And just as those new seedlings are coming up from the ground in the spring, that peace and love and harmony is coming up through the situation, for it is the truth that will endure. Each and every person is cared for by the infinite invisible wherever they are, right here and right now. Each is beloved and supported. Each knows that they are loved. The lesser gives way to the greater. And within my own being, there is this sense of gratitude to know this is the truth of life itself, my life and life everywhere. And so as I let go and I let God, my heart feels lighter. I feel the freedom of knowing that my path is full of that divine guidance, of caring, of wisdom, of peace that passes understanding. My life is full of love, full to overflowing, and I am so grateful to know this, to experience it, to share it with all the world. It transforms me and all of my relationships, and it is good. And so I release these words, this prayer right now to the law, to God, that makes it so. All is well, right here and right now. And together we say, and And so it is.